Hello, everyone. It's Melissa with Awaken Your Inner Awesomeness. I wanted to talk to you today about past lives. This subject came up for me the other day because I was having a conversation with someone and we started talking about past lives and whether or not they believed in past lives. And we had a really interesting conversation, so I thought that this might be something interesting to talk about on my podcast. Now, I know that this is sort of a sensitive subject because many religions teach that we are here one time and that we don't have past lives. But based on experience, I really believe that we do have past lives and we come here to live our experiences and to learn, and sometimes that takes more than one lifetime to do. I had the opportunity to do a past life regression with someone, and it was really interesting because I was actually able to see things from a past life experience, and I just knew things that had happened. And it explained a lot for me because I teach German, and I've been to Germany many times. And every time I go there, it just feels like home to me, and I don't really have a reason to feel that way because, before the first time I had gone as a teenager, I had never been to Germany. But as soon as I was there, it just felt like home. There's something very familiar about it. And then in doing one of the past life regressions, I was actually in Munich, and it was around the time of World War II, and I was a professor at the university. So then it all sort of clicked and started to make sense for me that, oh, well, this is why, because Munich, especially in Germany, is one of my favorite cities. And so that just made sense to me why that would actually be very familiar to me. And I think it's also interesting because there will be times too when a German word that I don't really think that I know will just pop into my head out of nowhere. And I think to myself when it happens, like, how did I know that word? I don't remember ever learning that word. So just coincidences like that, I think, are interesting. Another interesting thing that happened to me was that I got to go and visit Rome and visit the Colosseum. And that also seemed very familiar, even though I'd never been there. And so in another past life, I was able to see 3 of mine. I was a Roman soldier, so then that sort of clicked with me too. But I've always sort of been fascinated by the idea of having past lives. And I remember watching a TV show where there were children who remembered their past lives and remembered things like the Titanic and specific details about the Titanic that they would not have known unless they had actually been on the Titanic. And stories like that have always fascinated me. So I was doing a little research today, and I found a few stories of some confirmed cases of children who remembered their past lives. And there's an interesting story of a 3-year-old boy who lived near the border of Syria and Israel, and he remembered his death. He remembered that he was killed with an axe in a previous life, and he actually showed his parents where his body was buried, where the murder weapon was buried, and he identified the killer. And they actually uncovered a body with a head wound that was indeed in the spot where the boy indicated, and they found the axe, and then the killer admitted what he had done. So I just find that so fascinating. When you're children, we are still connected to that other side, and we don't have people who have told us yet that it's just our imagination or that we're wrong. So we're still able to remember a lot of those things. And I really believe that when children have night terrors, a lot of children are experiencing past life memories, especially if they died in a horrific manner. I think that those children are remembering some of those things. And so that's what's causing some of the night terrors. There's another story of a man who was a fire chief, but he remembered being in the Civil War. And he had an experience when he visited a Civil War battlefield. He just had a strong feeling that he had been there And the phrase "not yet" kept appearing strongly in his mind. And so he began to start researching the Civil War. It sparked an interest in him. And that's another thing, whenever someone remembers something from a past life or something seems familiar, they start doing a lot of research, and then they end up digging up a lot of things. Well, he started doing research, and he flipped through a magazine, and the words "not yet" in a quotation jumped out at him. General John B. Gordon had said that, "not yet," while holding his troops back. And this battle where he had visited, it was this particular battle site. So I think that's really interesting, and there are a lot of stories like this out there where children remember past lives. So if you have a small child and your child says things to you like, if they remember a ship, instead of trying to tell your child, "oh, that's just your imagination," or trying to discourage your child, ask them questions, and as if you're curious, and really you are, and write those things down. Because this friend that I was talking to said that when he was little, he told his mom that he remembered being a fur trader in a town not far from where they live now. And as a 4-year-old, how likely is it that he would have known what a fur trader was? So it was really interesting, and he said that his mom truly believed that he was remembering his past life. And then his brother said to his dad, I believe this was the story, I remember when I used to say that to you when I was your dad. And his dad had died when he was very young. So it's really interesting because sometimes we will come back as other roles of our family, that one time you may be the child and then you come back as the parent, which is really interesting. And the thing about past lives is that we come here to learn lessons so that we can learn and grow and move forward. And if we didn't learn a lesson that we were supposed to learn in a past life, we end up bringing that with us into our next life. And this is where I think a lot of people end up becoming stuck in their lives, because they're dealing with things still from past lives that they haven't resolved, which can be very interesting, and it makes things quite complicated sometimes. So one of the things you can do if you think that you're experiencing something from a past life is to do a past life regression. Now, there are guided meditations out there on YouTube that are free. Sometimes you may feel like you're not able really through your own guided meditation to get back to those past lives. I found that for myself at first. When I tried to do the guided meditations, I didn't really get anything. But then when I did the past life regression with someone there, I was able to get something. So you might need to have a person there guiding you. But another thing you can do if you feel like you're getting stuck and you're not really getting anything, you're not remembering anything, is you can ask Archangel Michael to be with you. Because I feel like a lot of us are just afraid of what we're going to uncover. But the thing about past lives is when you go back and you do the regression, you're not feeling any physical pain that you had. You, at least from what I experienced, was that I knew the emotional pain I was going through just because I knew it in my mind, like this is what's happening, but I didn't feel the emotional pain that was attached to it. It was almost, well, it is like being a third-party observer. You just look at it and say, this is what's happening, and I know this is what's happening, and this is the lesson I was supposed to learn. And it's really interesting. In one situation, I discovered that I had worked myself to death because I was just too proud to ask for help. And I find that I have that same problem in this life too. Sometimes I don't want to ask other people to help because I don't want to be a burden to them. But yet, here I suffered the ultimate loss in another life for doing that. So I realized that that was a pattern that I still brought over with me that I needed to break. I think it's interesting, and I would highly recommend everybody do a past life regression because it's very insightful. And I only visited 3 of my lives, and I'm sure there are much more than that. But that's the core of what we were able to get to in that amount of time. And like I said, it would be interesting for me. I'd like to go back and do a few more of those regressions and try to do them on my own this time to see if I could get anything. But there was a really interesting show that was on several years ago, and I don't remember what network it was on, but they would have stories where children would remember things from a past life. One boy I remember had nightmares about a plane crashing, and he would draw pictures of these planes, and they ended up being planes of World War II. And he was remembering his life as a pilot where he had crashed and had died. And they were able to do the research and figure out who he was, and that it all checked out. And I also remember watching a show, and I think it was on the same network, where they would actually do past life hypnosis there on television. And I remember watching an episode where there was a woman who, when she was under hypnosis, began speaking in a different language. And they had to actually do research to figure out what language it was, because it wasn't a standard dialect. It was a dialect from a tribe of people, and a linguist actually had to go back and really do some research, to figure out what language it was. And from the descriptions of the village where she lived, and her description of herself and the leader of this village and the language, they were able to figure out who she was, and it all checked out too. And the woman did not speak any foreign languages. She didn't even realize that she was speaking in a foreign language whenever she had this hypnosis done. It was super fascinating, though, to witness it and to see how, when they were able to go back and do the research, they found this person. So it's just a thought that past life are things that we experience, that we bring with us, and we have lessons that we learn sometimes through these past lives. And if you have karmic lessons that you think seem to keep plaguing you, if there are patterns of behavior that you are repeating, it's very possible you're repeating them from lifetime to lifetime until you can break them. So I highly recommend doing a past life regression. It's amazing to learn about just your past, and also to be able to look objectively at it and say, oh, this is what I was supposed to learn. It's such a fascinating thing to me. And like I said, you can try doing it on your own with guided meditations that they have out there, or you can seek a professional. There are a lot of people out there who do that. I just purchased Past Life Regression Meditation by Brian Weiss, and it was on Hay House. They actually had their meditations on sale for like $2.95 or something like that. Very crazy low price, and they may still have them on sale, so check that out. I don't know if they're still there or not, but they had them the other day, so I can't wait to try that out and see what happens. And I also purchased his book too, to read about it, because he has been, I think, one of the leading people who have done research on this past life and past life regression. So I'm interested to read all about that and see what comes of that. I think that there are a lot of people who are probably really fascinated by past lives, and I think it would be really interesting to put together another show like that, just from all the experiences of people who have children who have said things like, oh, I remember when I was a farmer, or I remember when I was your dad and you were my son. So if you have small children, listen for what they tell you. They might say something to you about that. If you have a small child who's experiencing night terrors, maybe talk to them and just see what's going on when you try to go to sleep. Are you having a bad dream? And if they're able to describe what they're seeing, you might realize that it could be a past life coming back. And if you do have issues stemming from your past life coming through, there are also things you can do to cut yourself from those ties to your past life. You can do a cord cutting ceremony, which again, I have the cord cutting podcast on my podcast. You can go back and find, and you can do that. There are probably also some good guided meditations out there. I haven't personally done one for disconnecting from past lives. Like I said, I can't wait to try the past life regression from Brian Weiss. I think that's going to be interesting. So it's just something to think about, past lives. sure you've had them. So what were you? What lessons were you supposed to learn? And how are you going to use that in your present life? I wanted to keep you updated. I am still working on the email program that I'm going to have, which is called A Purposeful Pilgrimage. I do have a little bit of information about it up there on my website. It's in the final phases of me just trying to get it all put together out there on the website. Hopefully that will be in the next few days. So keep checking back for that, because if you want to totally transform your life, to live your best life possible, to be happy and abundant, I highly recommend this program. I went through a spiritual boot camp about 5 months ago, and it completely transformed and changed my life and even shifted the lives of those around me. And this program is going to be like that, but I think even better, because I've carefully and thoughtfully put together a lot of lessons. It's easily manageable to do every day for 20 days, and it's going to totally shift your life. So be looking for that. Also still working on my book. Can't wait until that is ready to be published. If you are a single mom, recently divorced, or even if you are a man and recently divorced, this book is for you, because it's all about how to put your life back together again and to be a single parent after divorce. It combines good advice and good old-fashioned humor, which is what we need sometimes, because when you have to go through the pain of divorce, you need anything that can help make you feel better. And it will help you to be able to cope with your life, and not just cope, but you're going to be able to thrive and be happy and successful, and overall come out of this better than when you started. And hopefully that will be out soon. And if you know anyone who's going through a divorce, keep that in mind when the book comes out. You'll be able to purchase it, and it will make a great present for those people you know who might need it. So that is all for today, I think. If you're interested more in past lives, maybe check out Brian Weiss, check out his book, check out Hay House and see if his past life regression meditation is still there. Like I said, it was only $2.99, I think, the other day, or $2.95, something like that. Go check that out. If you have any questions, let me know. I know that Julia Treat at juliatreat.com also does past life regressions, so if you're interested in having something like that done, you can always contact her, go to her website. You can go to YouTube and check out any free meditations they have there if you just want to try it and see if you're able to get anything on your own. I would highly encourage you to do that. I hope that you have a wonderful day and that you are healthy and happy and receiving so much love and abundance. I am sending you love, peace, and light. I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.